Last week, we featured the Tax Reform Package 1, bannered by the reduction in personal income tax as submitted by the Department of Finance to the House of Representatives. We also discussed the proposed adjustments in the income tax brackets to correct the so-called income creeping, reduction from 32% to 25% of personal income tax, and the shift to a simpler, modified gross taxation system. Join us today as we continue to discuss Comprehensive Tax Reform Program Package 1 of the Duterte administration. I am Dr. Victor B. Endriga, and this is TaxTV, a taxpayer's guide to Philippine taxation. Department of Finance Assistant Secretary and Official Spokesperson Paula Alvarez discussed with us the features of the proposed tax reform bill submitted by their department to the Ways and Means Committee of the House of Representatives. We all know that revenue measures must be initiated, filed, and enacted at the lower house. Aside from the DOF proposals, there are pending bills earlier filed by other legislators in the lower house and Senate aimed at lowering income tax rates as well and measures to increase government revenues. Just like other major bills, the DOF proposal contains controversial provisions that may cause delay in passage according to some legislators. Ways and Means Committee Chair, Congressman Dakila Carlo Cua, said that DOF should instead pitch the measure aimed at lowering income tax rates and the other revenue-generating legislation separately. He said the DOF bill proposal would be consolidated with the other pending bills earlier filed by other legislators. This is TaxTV. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Let us now continue our discussions with Assistant Secretary Paula Alvarez. The tax reform program of the Duterte administration, they say, is anti-poor because it takes away part of their income currently earned, and of course, let's say hazard pay, holiday pays, all those overtime pay, and including the Christmas bonuses. What could you say about this?
Actually, sir, this is a misconception because if you will look at the new system, it actually increases the amount of items that will be tax exempt. So again, it is the 250,000 mark. So even if you add all these and it amounts to 250,000, they are exempt. So if you are a minimum wage earner and you earn around 12 to 14,000 a month and annually around let's say 140 to 150,000, then even if you add the holiday pay, the hazard pay, it will still fall within the 250,000 tax-free bracket. And then it would only be those additional, the one in excess, that will be taxed. So that's for the whole year also. So if you divide the, for example, the 10, for example, you're earning 260,000, and the 10,000 would be taxed at 20%. If you divide that in 12 for the whole year, it will be smaller comparatively if you compute that as compared to what is being taxed in your current.
The bill on especially this 12% VAT, there's really a big clamor not to remove the tax
Yes, sir.
exemption that are being given to senior citizens and persons with disability. And please explain further on that.
Okay, sir. So for this, there is always a misconception, or they get confused because what they think what we will remove is a 20% discount for senior citizens and the PWD. We will not remove that. The 20% will stay there. They still have that discount. And for the VAT system also, the 12% discount or exemption from senior citizens, it will only be limited. We will not remove the exemption of senior citizens for medicine, for raw food, and for the education. Actually, we will even add for medical services. So, because we think that this is what the senior citizens need.
Their needs is really hospitalization.
Yes, sir. Especially for the more indigent
Yeah.
senior citizens, it is actually what they need. The only thing we will be removing from the VAT exemption for senior citizens are the hotels, the restaurants, and the other, things that aren't really basic needs. So instead of giving them 12% exemptions in restaurants, for example, we would, if you would look at it, for example, if a senior citizen pays 1,000 pesos for a meal in a restaurant, he gets 120 peso exemption from the VAT. If he can pay 1,000 pesos for a meal, then we think he doesn't really need the 120 exemption for that meal. So now the 120 pesos that he will be paying for, we will put that and make a more targeted subsidy. For example, increase medicine, increase pension from 300 to 500. Then we will include the VAT services exemption in hospital bills, hospital services. So we think this is more targeted and more it is more in keeping up with the needs of our senior citizens.
There are also clamors, especially on food, because they
Yes,
said
sir.
that seniors eat very little and already, unlike if you are still young, you eat
Yes,
plenty.
sir.
But if you're already a senior citizen, you eat very, very small. The volume that you eat is really very, very negligible. So with this explanation, it's really, it would really benefit all of
Yes,
us.
sir.
Because even the seniors,
Yes, sir.
it would be retained. Please
Yes,
take
sir.
note, it would be retained.
Yes,
Hospitalization
sir.
and medicines.
Yes, sir.
These are the two basic needs
Yes,
of
sir.
senior citizens. Higher excise tax would also mean, especially if you add up to diesel, gasolines, and all those liquid fuels that are being used, of course, it would also increase. Because I think current price is around 4.35
Yes,
per
yes, sir.
liter.
Yes, sir.
It would be increased to 10 pesos per liter.
Yes.
So it's really a big
Yes.
burden on the, especially those with cars and all those transportations. So what the comment of the DOF here?
For this one, sir, we took into account the fact that we have not indexed the oil excise in a really long time. So when we created the 4 pesos, we were supposed to adjust it every 3 years. So the value of the 4 pesos before is not the same as today. And of course, we also understand that if we increase this, everything in the market and in the transportation costs will increase. So because we have until 2018 to implement this, within the time frame, we are talking to DSWD, to the DOTC, because especially for our farmers and the fishermen, they will be taxed for the diesel, for their boats, and for their tractors. So what we are proposing is we will have targeted subsidies. For example, for fishermen and for farmers, we will have maybe cash cards or tawid pamasahe for those commuters. But we are still streamlining how this can be efficient. Either we give it maybe to the employers for them to implement across their employees, or we can give it to the public utilities in order for them not to increase the price of the transportation cost. So what we are trying to do is we will, because based on our studies and the numbers, 60% of fuel consumption are consumed by the richer and higher income,
higher brackets.
yes, or higher brackets. And the public utilities and the lower income brackets only consume around 10%, so it's really smaller. So if we can subsidize the lower ones and we can increase the tax on the richer ones, then they will also be deterred from using higher consuming vehicles. So it would be more efficient, actually.
I think the problem right now, because lately, the increase of the gasoline prices has been going up, I think more than 6 times already. Almost weekly, it goes up. Because I think right now, Saudi Arabia has already joined the group to limit their output or production. That's why the cost of fuel are going up again. Unlike before, they did not join because they said, why will we join you? We have so many oils here. So
Yes,
this
sir.
time, they already joined and they have agreed upon that they are going to reduce the production of oil.
For that, sir, because our projections is based on a 10-year period.
10 year,
so
yeah.
our projection is for the inflation rate of 1%. But for the shock in the, because right now, our project is the price per barrel is going
Yeah.
down. But for circumstances that are beyond, for example, our control,
Yeah.
which might come out in later parts of the year, then we have measures to adjust. So again, we have 1 year to have measures of administrative implementation. So maybe we can do something in order to caution that we will not be affected by the increase in oil.
Yeah, I think also the tax reform bill is, they said it is anti-family. Why? Because right now, a married person would get 50%, 50,000 for husband, 50,000 for the wife, and then for every kid, maximum of 4 of 25,000. If you add all of that, that would be 200,000.
Yes, sir. Okay. For that, it's not actually anti-family, because if you will look at it, for spouses, the discount or the exemption, deductions, the deductions for children may only be claimed by one spouse.
Yeah.
So the 200,000 is only claimed by one spouse. So for example, the wife earns 400,000, the husband earns
You cannot
400,000.
claim the husband.
One can only choose either
Yeah.
the wife claims the 200,000
Or
or
the
the husband claims the 200,000. With our proposal, sir, both spouses has the 250 reduction. Because, for example, the wife is earning 400, but because 250,000 and below is tax-free, then you only tax the remainder of the 400 for the wife. For the husband, the same thing. So both of them get the 250,000 exemption as compared to only one spouse can claim a 200,000 deduction.
So here, both of them are entitled to 250,000?
No, actually, because it is an income deduction.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. So again, what our tax system now is a little complicated because you have to include all the income, and then you have to include the deductions, the exemptions.
Yeah.
So you have to compute it. Now we factor in everything. So what is only taxed is the remainder in excess of the 250,000 mark.
There is also clamor coming from the teachers group, especially right now they're receiving around 19,000 plus. And of course, the 13th-month pay, so a total of around 267,000 on an annual income. So easily, they said they will fall under the bracket 2.
Actually, sir, that we also want to clarify that because they will not fall, the entire 260 will not fall the second bracket. Because right now, for example, if you're a teacher, you're earning 19,000, and then you include the 13th month pay, it is above the 10,000 peso mark in the current tax system. Because in the current tax system, in excess of 10,000 is 5%, and then the next bracket is the incremental value. So it's 7 layers. Right now, yes, sir. So you are being taxed at a higher rate. So, and the mark is 500,000. So right now, if you're a teacher earning 260,000, with the 13th month pay included,
it would fall under the second bracket?
The first, the second bracket, but what is only being taxed is because from 250, you are increased to 260 a month. Only the 10,000 is taxed for the 20%, not the whole 200.
Not the entire one.
Yes, sir. So yung 250,000 is tax-free. It is exempted. Ang tax lang is in excess
Because usually it's like that. When you fall in the next bracket, you'll be taxed already.
For the whole,
For the
no,
whole.
no,
But
sir.
in this
No,
case,
no,
it's,
sir.
you have to remove first the
Yes,
250,000.
because it is exempt. So what is only taxed is the in excess of the 250. So since it's 26, the example is
Yeah.
260, 10,000 will be taxed at 20%. So that's how it goes. So that's the only deduction you will have. So you are able to take home the entire 20,000 per month.
There's also another proposal to increase also the excise tax on is this imported luxury vehicles. And of course, right now, owning a car is no longer a luxury, it's already a necessity because of the huge traffic that we have. And of course, if you try to increase that,
Yes, sir.
it would affect the manufacturing sector on the cars.
Okay. So, sir, we also want to clarify because there is confusion also with this one. Now, for the proposal that we are having, we are also fixing the system because what we will do is we will peg the excise tax on the manufacturing cost, not the base cost. So, for example, before, it was for vehicles that are 600,000 pesos, for example, Vios and other cars, Mirage, those cars that are more in the economic side, the economically friendlier models, they are taxed at 2% plus the rate, flat rate. That's the being excised. Now, what we are proposing is we will remove the flat base. It will just be the manufacturing cost at 5%. So for those are the ones those are the vehicles used greatly, like Vios, yung Mirage, the smaller cars.
And the smaller cars.
Yes, it will just be 5% because it will be pegged at the manufacturing cost. So for the luxury vehicles, the 60% being reported is for those around 1.1 million to 2.1 million. So these are, you have your Lexus, your BMWs. So these are the ones that will be taxed at the bigger rate of 60%.
So from now, the rate is around how much? Current rate is around 30?
It's yes, lesser.
Around
And
30.
it's a bracketed also.
Also bracketed.
Yes, it will be bracketed. It's not just flat 5 and 60. There are also in between.
Because I think right now, if you try to import a car, you do not pay only excise tax, you pay the BIR, you pay also VAT.
Yes,
So
sir.
it's more than double the cost. If you
Yes,
buy
sir.
a car from abroad, bring it here, you would
Yes,
pay
sir.
more than 100%.
Because actually, sir, we have the CARS program. It is a program recently enacted that we are subsidizing the manufacturing of cars within our country.
Locally produced.
Locally produced. So this is how we entice the brands to create, for example, Toyota, to manufacture the cars here. And our cost would be the manufacturing cost. So it will be pegged there, not the importation cost. So because the CARS program, I think, subsidizes a part of the manufacturing of vehicles, that's why it is lower here, then it would entice them to manufacture here instead of import. Because if they import, of course, it will be a greater cost.
Now, could you say something to the public on how they could help out, especially under the new Duterte administration?
Okay, so for the public, of course, we understand that increasing taxes are not always a popular measure, but what we want is to increase our infrastructure in order to better our traffic system, to have more schools, more hospitals. So our goal is to create a bigger middle class and to reduce those impoverished, to decrease the poverty rate and create a bigger middle class. And this is a shift of burden to the richer people. So sometimes there may come terms wherein you might make a little sacrifice, but always remember that this is in order to equalize the disparity in our wealth gap. So our goal always is to uplift the poorer in order to have a better society, so that maybe by 2019 we have a bigger middle income country, and by 2040 a bigger higher income society. So ito po ay konting sakripisyo para naman matupad natin yung ating goals na 10-point economic agenda, which is better schools, better hospitals, better roads, development all over the country. so that Metro Manila is not the center of traffic and business. You can disperse the wealth everywhere so that mas balanced po ang ating country.
Let's listen to the comments and suggestions from Congress leaders, senator, and business leaders on the proposed tax reform.
It's in fact more than from the time they started with because they computed it from the Consumer Price Index of 1995. So talagang it's about time that we change it. In fact, if you look at the Consumer Price Index that they used in 1997 when this current tax code was passed, it was roughly at around 67.1.
Wow.
Today, it's already at 142. So more than double ang increase. So obviously, what has resulted is that those that are not supposed to be in the higher income brackets are now paying a higher tax.
So I think the time is ripe to really revisit this and ensure that working people who are in their first jobs and are not making a lot of money, they shouldn't be taxed at too big a percentage, which is what is happening now. They're taxed at 20%. You're talking about public school teachers, you're talking about policemen, about soldiers. These people need to save up to provide a decent living for their families, to save up to buy a home, a car, and other needs of their family.
The unadjusted tax bracket has caused already what they say as a bracket creep, meaning to say in the past there's a difference between those earning really high and their tax would be this much compared to those who are those with a low income, and they should only be taxed very little. But because the brackets are unadjusted and the income of people have increased significantly over the years, so that's why you practically have one bracket for those. I don't know how much was the value of 500,000 way back in 1987. So I suppose these were really the managerial people who would have an income of 500,000 a year in 1987. And now you are simply putting them in the same situation with the ordinary people.
Oh, as far as reducing the income tax po, we have to reduce it in order to be in the same level as the other ASEAN countries.
Yeah, Asian countries.
They are all moving from 25 going even down to 20.
Yeah, now 20 to 22. The average
That's
right
right.
is around 20, 22,
That's
23,
right po.
like that.
Yes, and so we have to be on the same level playing field.
The demands of the development program, especially those related to the improvement of infrastructure spending, would further justify the tax reform program. Together with the tax reform is the corresponding administrative reform program designed to improve tax collection efficiency of revenue-generating units, the Bureau of Internal Revenue and the Bureau of Customs. In terms of actual revenues by 2019, this would mean around 600 billion pesos of new revenues, 400 billion from tax reform program, while 200 billion from administrative reforms. The gains from the economic reforms will enable the Duterte administration to address the 10-point economic program that is the center of its agenda for change. Let us help build our nation. Give your share by paying your taxes correctly and promptly for a better tomorrow. Once again, I am Dr. Victor B. Endriga, and this is TaxTV, a taxpayer's guide to Philippine taxation. Thank you for watching.
For comments, questions and suggestions on our topic today, you may email us at taxtvph@gmail.com, and Dr. Victor Indriga will gladly answer your queries.